So, again, I really appreciate the time. So if you're ready, we'll hit it, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds good.
All right. So, do you mind if I use your Wikipedia as a intro here, Warren?
No, don't use that. No, it's been vandalized by. Oh, sorry, you're joking. I thought you were serious.
Well, no, the first part is it's on point, except it ends with the fact that you billed yourself the Prince of Darkness. So why don't you just take some time and introduce yourself to the people that might be listening or watching today? Warren Kinsella is my guest.
Hi, I'm Warren. I'm a lawyer, author, law professor, political consultant, and a bad musician.
Yeah, bad musician. Awesome. Warren, I appreciate your time today. Brother, you're so politically connected, and, I don't know, what do we call you, an operative, a political operative?
I guess, a consultant. People hire me to work on campaigns and political campaigns and help them out. And that's what we do at the Daisy Group.
Cool. Founder of the Daisy Group. And Warren, tell us a little bit about the end of the days of the most recent federal campaign and your departure from taking a break, at least, from social media. What was working on you there? How are you feeling about it?
Well, what happened there was we had hired someone who stole a bunch of documents, basically, on a contract, and that person circulated the documents to some people in the media and some political operatives who are not fans of mine, and they tried to do all kinds of damage, and they did do some damage, and it was mainly about work we're very proud of. We were working, we've been opposing racism, as I think you know, because that was the last time we talked. For example, we took on a neo-Nazi newspaper that was published here in Toronto for years, unfortunately. We're trying to change the name of a street in Puslich, Ontario called Swastika Trail. We do that kind of work, and we're known for that kind of work. And we got hired to basically do research on the racists who had gotten involved with the People's Party of Canada. For example, one of the people that Elections Canada allowed to certify the People's Party was a guy who had been the leader of a group called the National Alliance. National Alliance is a neo-Nazi terrorist group in the United States that was involved in the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City in 1995, where 168 men, women, and children were murdered. So, this issue isn't just a problem in the United States, it's a problem in Canada too, and we're very proud to do that kind of work, and we've been hired to help out on that. And how that could be a controversy, that makes no sense to me. The media, along with us, had been, correctly pointing out that Bernier's People's Party was racist for months, and they, I guess, decided one weekend to make him a victim. At that point, I just said to hell with it. I had too many people inviting me to kill myself or making threats, so I just took a break from social media, and it was great. And I encourage everybody else to do that periodically.
Yeah, you got to have a thick skin for sure, and I've learned a little bit how to let it roll off my back when it's just super skater 95 with the no picture and he's anon. But I mean, when it comes from your friends and people that think they know you, and then their comments are something like, what happened to you? Like this whole idea that I'm better than you, you've obviously gone to the dark side, and what happened type of thing. So is it more based in people that know you that got to you, or is it a matter of...
No. I mean, the thing that everybody needs to keep in mind, I have 42,000 followers on Twitter, and the vast majority of them use fake names and fake pictures, and they pretend to be somebody other than who they are. And some of them are okay people, but, you get some people on there who are jerks and are racist or sexist or Islamophobes or anti-Semites. And so they're bad people, right? That's the regrettable part of social media. Social media is good in that it's given a lot of people a voice they wouldn't have otherwise had. But it's also allowed people to do terrible things. And so when I encounter those people, I block them or I report them. But, I don't let them get under my skin. But the recent election thing, it was just, it was nutty. It was out of control. So, I just turned it off. And that's what I say to others. If, you feel like you're under siege, particularly this happens to women a lot on social media, and just turn it off. They can't get you then. And, but, somebody makes a threat. If somebody threatens to cause you physical harm, you got to raise it with the police.
Yeah, and I get your labels that you're throwing around. I think we're throwing them around a lot lately. But do you consider that white supremacy or racism or anything of the like? It seems to be the first. I don't know where to classify you politically. I think you've done work for everyone. You classify yourself as an independent.
I'm an independent.
Yeah,
like most Canadians, I've voted for all political parties. I've donated to all political parties, except for Bernier's.
Right.
And I've got friends in all political parties. I'm an independent.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And when it comes around to it, like I said, what do you think if you were to rate the problems and the issues that we're facing today, that racism and Islamophobia and all these labels, and it seems to come more so from the left, I find, is that, they just don't want to talk. And as soon as you disagree with them, they call you a racist. So how do you classify that as like problems or issues that we're facing today?
It's a huge problem right now.
You think so, eh?
No, I know so. And there has been an explosion in hate-related violence and crime in Canada, in the United States, and in Western Europe since about 2016. Three things of note have taken place. The election of Donald Trump licensed and encouraged these individuals, these hateful individuals and groups, to get more bold. From their perspective, one of their own is in the most powerful office in the land. In Britain, you have Brexit on the right that really, in the main, was more about anti-immigrant and anti-refugee sentiment than anything else. And then you've got a leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, who's openly anti-Semitic. So it's a problem on the right and the left. The thing I'd caution anybody listening is that, no ideology, no side has got a monopoly on virtue. There is racism and anti-Semitism on the right, and it exists on the left too. It's a problem in every region of Canada. There's no province, for example, that is better than another province in terms of this problem. And it's become a bigger problem since 2016 because people in a position of power, the so-called populists, embrace these points of view. And, understandably, the racist groups and the anti-Semitic groups are encouraged by that. They feel emboldened by that. They feel validated by that. And it's a big, big problem. I've been tracking this stuff for more than 30 years on both the right and the left, and I've never seen it as bad as it is right now. I agree to a point with you. I kind of fell into the idea that we're more politically divided than we ever have been. Men and women seem to be further apart than we ever have been. But then I look at it and I go, you kind of hit on this earlier in the conversation about everyone's got a voice. So it's the radicals and the extremes that seem to have a louder voice. And I agree with you from the standpoint that this anti-Semitism seems to be coming from right and left, but especially when we look down south of, coming from the squad, if you're Don Cherry and you say, you people that come here, you're a racist and you get canceled. But if you're, I don't know, AOC or Talib or whatever, you can have all kinds of anti-Semitic tropes and hints and memes and stuff like that. And for some reason, it seems they get a pass. How do you feel about that? Well, I don't give them a pass, and I condemn both. And I'm saying that very clearly. The problem right now is people on the right. For example, you give the Don Cherry example. He did make racist statements in the past. I don't know if you people amounts to that, but he did.
Right.
And folks who, classify themselves as conservatives are okay with that. And then people on the left give AOC a break because they like her. And the thing that's made it worse is social media. Back in the old days, I guess I'm showing what an old guy I am, we would talk to each other. We would reach out to each other. I met President Bush this week. He was speaking at a conference, and I spoke just before him. And he was amazing, and he was somebody who I previously was very critical of. I take him in a New York Minute now. And he talked about his friendship with the Obamas and how something it wasn't he really expected to have happen. And he said, the damn problem is we just don't connect with each other anymore. We don't talk to each other anymore. With people, you can disagree with somebody but not hate their guts. You can disagree with somebody's point of view and still accept that they're a friend or somebody who has got value or have kids like you. And that's where I'm at. The people I don't like, the most are these hardcore partisans who have blinkers on, they have blinders on, and they're never prepared to accept that their side makes mistakes too, on the right and the left.
I appreciate that. And staying with politics there, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think we have a double standard? Do you think it's equally, we've got Don Cherry and then we've got Jessica Allen, and it really seems like, I love Grapes, and I don't want to be measured by what I said 20 years ago. And I know he said some things that you would consider racist for, Swedes. They're wearing the visors, and they're not tough, and they don't fight, and, they're not playing a certain type of hockey. And, I kind of cut him a pass. He's Grapes. He's from a different era. And the fact that he said something like that 20 years ago when we weren't so anal about it and just dissecting every word and every syllable apart, and then he says something like this, and he's gone. And then Jessica Allen comes out on the CTV's The Social and does a white supremacy, like a very critical of white hockey players, and she doesn't apologize. She comes on and justifies it, and she's still got a job. So you think we suffer from a little bit of a double standard?
She did apologize from what I saw.
Yeah.
I think they're both idiots. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't think, I think they're both idiots. I don't like either one of them.
You think they both deserve to lose their job as well?
No, I don't think people should lose their jobs for making mistakes.
Right.
And we're doing too much of that these days. If somebody comes out and says something just egregiously, horribly over the top, well, yeah, their bosses need to take a look at that, because these people are on the public airwaves. They're owned by you and me. But, no, I don't think, I'm not into, President Obama talked about this recently, this tendency to cancel people. Like, I got canceled too, I didn't even get asked. I was on News Talk 1010, and they decided to can me because they heard that I was working for a political party to expose racism. And it's like, well, yeah, I was working to expose racism. And I always sought to be fair and transparent and open about, my views. But I got canceled. So anyway, I'm not going to sit around and cry in my milk about it. And, that's just the way it is. And I don't agree with their decision, but that's the decision they made. But I think if your point is that, we're just punishing people, taking away their livelihood, taking away their jobs, taking away their reputation because they make one mistake, I don't agree with that, because everybody makes mistakes.
I agree completely, and they all deserve a second chance. And you know what I find hilarious, for lack of a better term, is the idea that you say something that's taken it out of context, it's not understood the way you meant it to, or in Grape's situation, he just delivered it badly. But if you come back to a man and you say, hey, Don Cherry, are you racist? And he says, no, of course I'm not racist. I kissed that black kid on TV, blah, blah, blah. And so don't you feel like, that these people should have a chance to correct themselves, and you should have to take them at their word pending any proof or action that proves that they are what you're accusing them of?
Well, sure, yeah. No, people should always be given an opportunity. I'm a good Irish Catholic, or I try to be one. And people should always be given an opportunity to atone. And they should always be given an opportunity to explain themselves, because all of us make mistakes. But, like Jim, if they're making the same mistake 12 times, right?
Absolutely.
At a certain point, we're entitled to form a judgment that, that's actually who they are, and their apologies really don't matter. And, I think that's the judgment a lot of people have formed about the Prime Minister Trudeau, is he's apologized a lot about a lot of different behavior, whether it's the Aga Khan or SNC-Lavalin or blackface or whatever, but he keeps making the same mistakes in judgment, and I think that's why a lot of us just said, we need to make a change. This guy he's great at apologies, but he's not good at changing his personal behavior.
Awesome. Now, I'm a 10-time Green. I ran for the leadership in 2006. I was, part of the group that, informally recruited Elizabeth May. She was a star at the time, still a star, and great for the party. I appreciate that she stepped down. One, because we can have listen to me, I haven't been Green for a long time. I still say we because of my loyalty, but, they haven't had a leadership race or even a conversation about it since 2006. So, and I was really surprised when it came out that you were working with them. I don't know how far that went or what happened there, but speak to us about your relationship with the Greens during the election there.
Well, that I can disclose because they gave permission for us to do so.
Okay.
One of my guys,
normally you wouldn't
Tom
talk about
Hennifer,
cons,
one of my guys, Tom Hennifer, ran their war room. I helped them get it started, and it was something that we were comfortable doing. I not so much her, but I met some amazing people in the Green Party, as I'm sure you did, and smart, well-intentioned people who had the best interests of the country at heart. And, we need more of those kinds of people. Ms. May, I don't want to be too critical of her, but I'm glad that she is leaving. I think that she had turned the Green Party a little bit into a cult of personality. It was more about her and her views than the party. And, she had a number of chances to improve the party's position. And, what has the Green Party got now? 2 MPs that it didn't have, a couple of years ago. That's not good enough. When you look at the Green Party's position in the polls, it should have done much better. And so she needed to take responsibility for that, and I guess she has.
What do you think they need to do to become more mainstream, get some more people in there? Because, I'm ideologically opposed to much of their stuff now. I don't know. I grew up, and my first election was 24 years old. I was ideologically possessed to the left. And as I grew older, I've had more educated conversations and debates about the issues that matter to me. Number one, free speech, but there's others. And I've kind of gone away from them. I still kind of lean socially left, but I think I'm more a moderate now. And on some issues, I'm right, straight conservative, and that's not a bad thing. My friends don't really recognize me so much. But what do you think the Greens need to do to become more mainstream and have more success? Because they certainly have a role.
Well, I don't worry about ideology. I think people have lots of views. Regular people have lots of views on the right and the left, and I saw that in the Green Party. There were people who were fiscally conservative and progressive in terms of environmental issues. Right. I think what they need to do is, firstly, they have to have a change in leadership, which they're now going to have, so that's good. They need to get rid of her because she's been there too long. Right, and she had an effect. I think you know what I'm talking about. She intimidated people within the party, and they were afraid to come forward.
Oh, and it's become the Elizabeth May party, including controlling the board of directors, which is how she got to a point where she didn't have to face a leadership contest for 13 years or what have you.
So she's ancient history. She's gone, and good luck to you. But in terms of what the party needs to do, the polling shows consistently the Canadians favor taking action on climate change. They agree that it's a problem. Younger people feel it's the number one problem, and it is a huge problem. I was in the Yukon last week, and I was talking to a couple of First Nations people how beautiful it is, and they're like, all the water you're looking at and all that land you're looking at is usually covered by snow and ice. We've never seen it like it is right now. So climate change is real. What the problem is, and the polling shows this, is while people agree that it's real, they want something done about it. They don't want to pay for it. And I think the reason for that is not because people are selfish or dumb. It's because they've seen governments too often squander taxpayer dollars. They've seen governments act irresponsibly. They need to see a government that treats their tax dollars with respect, and then I think at that point they'd be much more willing to contribute to the fight against climate change. But right now, when you have the government Trudeau government, for example, being as reckless as it's been on some public expenditures, well, why would you trust those guys with carbon taxes, right? So it makes sense to me that the public, while concerned about the issue, doesn't trust the levels of government to deal with the issue.
What's your prediction for the current government now in the minority situation? As I've grown older, I've kind of swung more right because those are the important issues to me, mostly, as I mentioned, freedom of speech. But now we're in a minority situation. One, do you think we're going to shift further left, if that's possible, with the NDP holding the balance of power? And how long do you think this government will last in a minority situation?
Again, I don't get hung up on the ideology stuff because your average person, regular folks just don't see themselves as ideological. If you talk to them at the kitchen table, they're going to have views on the left and they're going to have views on the right, and they're still a normal person. This government's lifespan is going to be determined by Mr. Scheer. If he gets booted out at that leadership review in April in Toronto, and the Conservatives get a decent leader, and I would recommend to them they consider a woman who is, pro-choice and from central Canada, because they had two leaders in a row from West. They need to get somebody who appeals to central Canada clearly, because that's where they failed. If they do that, watch out.
Who do they have that's a good female leader with the Conservatives?
Ambrose, Raitt.
Okay.
Carolyn Mulroney, who's a minister here in Ontario, as you know. Mulroney is bilingual, or got a name recognition. She knows how to win. Raitt lost her seat, regrettably, and I say that as somebody who's a friend of hers, but I think she can come back from that. And, Ambrose, while a Westerner, is somebody who's held in high regard, too. So it becomes pretty hard for Trudeau to fight a woman for all kinds of different reasons. Women stuck with him, I think reluctantly after blackface, but they did. If you have a female leader of the Conservative Party, watch out. That is a game changer. But, how long does it all last? History tells us the longest that any minority government lasts in Canadian history is about 3 years back in the 20s. Usually the average is about a year and a half. So right now I'd say we're on track to a year and a half.
How about provincially? What do you think? Doug Ford got the right people around him finally?
Yeah, he does.
You think
he's got a guy named Jamie Wallace, and full disclosure, Jamie was my editor when I wrote for the Toronto Sun, and he's just doing an amazing job. And ministers are happier now. The staff are happier now. Doug is being allowed to be Doug, but Doug's not an ideological person either. He's a populist in the traditional sense. He's kind of a people guy. So they're allowing him to reconnect with people. They're not hiding him away. And, while the government is still unpopular, it is by no means as unpopular as it was. So that's helping them out. And as long as Trudeau is Prime Minister, Doug's got an excellent shot at being reelected, because his main opponent, the Ontario Liberal Party, just has 5 seats at the moment.
Interesting. What do you think there's a practical, workable model outside of first past the post?
Well, we tried it. As you know, in 2007, it was on the ballot in Ontario, this mixed member representation thing. There were committees and studies done.
Didn't the Liberals kind of sell us out on that, though? They weren't kind of disingenuous?
The Liberal Party, I ran Dalton McGuinty's War Room in that campaign, and he told us very clearly, and he was right. The political party, certainly his political party, should not interfere in that process. The people should be given an opportunity, so it shouldn't become a partisan thing. Otherwise, it gets distorted. It's up to the people to decide whether they want that type of electoral system, and they overwhelmingly rejected it. So at that point, I just say to all my Green and New Democrat friends, guys, you had your shot. It was on the ballot in every riding, and you lost. It's over.
Interesting. What are your thoughts down in the States as far as a Democratic leader to take on Trump?
Well, I'm a Joe Biden guy.
Okay.
And, I know that people say, Joe makes verbal mistakes, and they say he's too old, and, they say he's out of touch. But they said all those things about Trump, didn't they? And Trump won. So I think we need a centrist. I think, Senator Warren and and Senator Sanders are intelligent people. But, I've lived in the States. I've worked for the Democratic Party. As a matter of fact, I was just doing some work for the Maine Democratic Party this morning because I'm associated with them. And, the United States is a conservative country. It's just not going to embrace Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders for president. It's just not going to do that.
And too far left, do you think?
Yeah.
They need more moderation, more somebody that's more in the middle.
Centrist, and that's what Joe is.
And what do you think his chances against Trump are? It looks like most of the polls don't fare
look at every poll. He says he's going to win. He'll win. So, he's my guy. And, the others are very impressive people, and they'll make excellent members of his cabinet. But I think those of us who are involved in the Democratic Party need to get behind Joe.
What do you think the main issues are that we're facing in Western democracies here, Warren? Is I come around to more of the idea, fatherlessness seems to be something that's really coming up for me over and over and over, especially in the States and the black communities. You got 85% of single motherhood. Once they changed the welfare system to just say, you can't have a man in the house, it seemed to really be the downfall of boys and families. What do you think what are some of the most important topics to you see in Western civilization these days politically?
Economy. It's back as an issue. It's back as a concern. I think we're all seeing signs where you are, where I am, where it looks like the economy is starting to slip again. There's predictions that some economists are making that a recession is on the way. I don't know if that's so. I just know the last time we had a recession in 2009, none of us were very good at predicting its arrival. Mm-hmm. So that's a great concern of mine because, the Trudeau guy spent a lot during a time of economic growth. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to save during times of economic growth and spend during times of recession and depression. And so their ability to spend and, prime the pump of the economy has been constrained or is limited by the amount of spending that they did during good times. So I think that's a big, big mistake, and that's one that, we may all come to regret quite a bit.
Don't you feel like we've just written fiscal responsibility off politically here? I mean, the taxpayer has an endless deep pocket, it seems. We don't seem to rally too much about anything as far as finances go. But the government just keeps to spend. And I mean, we saw Harper when he was in power. We had Jack Layton as the opposition holding the political gun to his head. He got more money out of Harper than any government ever. And I'm wondering if we're headed down that same road now with the liberal prime minister and his cabinet, with the opposition, the official opposition being the NDP, or looking to be on most things, looking to be the NDP. But what's your take on fiscal responsibility?
Well, it's going to happen again. It's a minority government, and in order to survive, Trudeau has to depend upon, the Bloc Québécois, which is going to want more spending in Quebec. Mm-hmm. He has to depend on the NDP, and, I guess the Green Party doesn't really matter. But, in order to survive, he has to spend. And so he's had a historical tendency to do that. I think he's going to do it again. Mm-hmm. So, people who are looking for fiscal responsibility over the next 2 years, 2.5 years, you're going to be sadly disappointed.
What do you think the long-term impact of ignoring that is?
Well, massive deficits and so on. When I came in with Mr. Chrétien, I had the honor and privilege of working for him. I was his special assistant when he became leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. And, The Economist had on its front page that Canada was heading into third world status because of the ridiculous decisions that the Mulroney Conservatives had made and the spending decisions that they had made. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, I'm not going to get rid of the GST. We need the revenue, and we need to get this country back and get back the debt as a percentage of GDP that is reasonable. And he did that. And I know a lot of Conservatives have tremendous admiration for what Mr. Chrétien and Mr. Martin did when they were in government.
Including me in that. I've never been a guy that voted Liberal, obviously being Green for so long, and now, well, on the opposite side of it, it seems. But talk to me a little bit about your time with Chrétien.
Well, I was a lawyer. I was practicing law in this building in Ottawa, and he was in the building over, and it was connected by, one of those mall things. Mm-hmm. And I used to see him lining up to get his own sandwich, and then he'd go and sit down and look at the sports pages by himself. He didn't send down his secretary. He was just the regular guy. It was when he was out of politics. And I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. And when Meech Lake came along, I objected to the fact that they wanted to stick an interpretive clause in the Constitution of Canada without first defining it. And he was the only politician around who had the same point of view. So I just said, hey, you need some help. And they were more interested in the fact that I've been a journalist than a lawyer. And so I was a volunteer for him, and I stayed with him. And then when he won, he gave me a call and said, come on, come have some fun. You can always be a damn lawyer, but, when I'm offering you a chance to, you can't do very often.
Wow.
So I had friends and family and colleagues saying, oh, you're making a big mistake, and he's never going to be prime minister. He's never going to win. And so I got to say to them all afterwards, I guess he did okay, huh? He did all right.
Who do you consider some of our most effective leaders to be?
Him.
Yeah, over the history, you think Chrétien was number one?
Yeah, without a doubt. I was an admirer of the courage of Justin's father, but not always his decisions. I was an admirer of the mind of Mr. Harper, but not always his decisions. I was an admirer of Mr. Mulroney for his conviction on South Africa and free trade, because he was right on both of those. And he had to oppose Reagan and Thatcher on South Africa. I think we've been well served by many of our leaders in this country. Some have been a disappointment, like Mr. Trudeau has been. But we're a great democracy, and we're one of the greatest democracies in the world. And Canada will always be there. It will always survive, and we will prevail. And I believe that is the case now.
What's coming up for you? What do you see yourself in the future? I've caught a few episodes of your podcast. It's actually pretty entertaining. And what do you see work-wise? What do you see you're working on coming up?
I'm going to continue to do what I do. I'm involved in fighting racism and anti-Semitism, so I've been doing that for years. I'm not involved in any political party other than the Democrats in the United States. So what I do here is if there's a conservative who's a friend, I'll help them out. If it's a new Democrat and their friend, I'll help them out. And I say a pox in the political parties. I think they're a big part of the problem. And I'm just not involved in political parties anymore. And I'm not interested in that personally. I'm interested in helping out individual people who I think would be of service to the country, who would benefit the country. And that's what I do.
Appreciate it. Now, before I let you go, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for keeping it a little long here. Who are the people that have supported you over the dark days?
You mean recently?
Yeah.
Doug Ford, Dalton McGuinty, Jean Chrétien, John Tory. Those would be some of the known names. So you can see there are people on the right and the left, right?
Mm-hmm.
People come together, and then just friends and family. In politics you get knocked around. I was talking to somebody about it yesterday. I said it really is a blood sport.
Oh, for sure.
It really is. Some people, it's not enough for them to disagree with you. They want to kill you. They want to destroy you. They want you to lose everything. And they're shitty, rotten people. And the key thing is, sometimes they get at me, right? Sometimes they get under my skin. Mm-hmm. But you got to say, no, that's not going to prevail. That is not going to win. I'm not going to let them take me out. I'm going to push back, and I'm going to fight back, and I'm going to stand for the stuff that I believe in. And that's what I've done, and that's what all of those people I've named have encouraged me to do. And they haven't killed me yet, so I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, and do you think that's what keeps women out of it, because it's such a blood sport, quote unquote? Do you think that they just are turned off by it? I think we all agree there's a place for more women in politics. I mean, I think if we had more women, we have a more compassionate, society or resolutions that come down the pipe. I don't know, but do you think that that's discouraging women from getting involved? Just the sheer nature of politics itself.
Of course, yeah. Of course. There's 16 women representing every political ideology in the recent, the British election that's taking place right now. And every single one of them just said what you just said. I just got tired of all the crap and the threats and saying I'm going to rape you and I'm going to kill you, and they just said to hell with it.
So you don't believe that there's an oppression that's systemic that's keeping women out of it, like men don't want women in politics type of thing. That's not existing in today's society, is it?
Of course it is. Well, yeah. Yeah, they don't want. Well, like if somebody says to your wife, "I want to rape you and throw you in a dumpster," that's what they said to my wife. Well, that's not exactly encouraging their participation in public life, is it?
No, I get that.
So, that is something. Women experience that more than men, which is the very definition of systemic. So, yes, that is happening. Yesterday was International Men's Day, and I had a good laugh to myself. I was eating a BLT at lunchtime. I was like, Christ, we get every other day. I didn't even know we needed a special day.
Was that you that said somebody tweeted? I didn't retweet it, but I saw somebody remark, "Men don't need a day. We'll just take any day we want."
Exactly. No, women in politics have a much tougher time.
Yeah.
And you can ask Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott about that.
Appreciate it. Any regrets, Warren?
Sure, I got a list.
Oh,
you don't have long enough of a show, and I got to go.
Okay. How do we get a hold of you if anybody wants to touch you up other than Twitter, Warren?
You people can find me on my website, warrenkinsella.com. I got 3 different Facebook platforms. I'm there. I'm over on Instagram. I'm not quite sure how I got there, but I'm apparently there. They can get me on Twitter, and I welcome criticism. I welcome, people pointing out when I'm wrong. But, anybody who gets a little too far, they're just going to get themselves blocked, and too bad if they don't like it.
There you go. Warren Kinsella, I appreciate the time. All the best to your wife and your family, and I hope to talk to you soon. I appreciate the time. Thanks
so much.
All right.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Warren Kinsella, if you need him. Interesting conversation. Man, do I disagree with that guy a lot on some of the issues. A lot of the issues. Systemic sexism is keeping women out of politics. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I appreciate the time. Thank you, Warren. I've been chasing you for a while. Thank you to Katie for lining that up. It's been a long time. Busy man. Find him on Twitter, warrenkinsella.com or at Kinsella Warren. So first name or last name first name last on the Twitter. warrenkinsella.com. And if you think the information here is useful, share. This interview is going to go offline only because this is just a cheap way of doing it. We actually have microphones and other good stuff here to make the sound better. But so we'll do a little edit. We'll put some titles up for Warren, how to get a hold of him. Thank you for the people that watched. But again, this will be over on the YouTube channel. YouTube.com/Jim Fannon is where you find it. Online, it's pretty much everywhere, at Jim Fannon or at Jim Fannon Show. Appreciate you coming in today, and appreciate the time that Warren Kinsella gave us. So find him online, and like and share if you find it interesting. Peace out, yo.